Welcome to today's deep dive. And just to jump right in and be completely transparent with you from the very start, I need to explicitly state directly to you, the listener, that the conversation we are having today is actually a virtual scenario generated by AI.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's based entirely on a specific lecture that was delivered in Hosong, South Korea, back on March 1st, 2026. And the whole topic is this wild intersection of infectious diseases and spiritual immunity.
Which is such a fascinating core subject. I mean, it completely reframes how we look at a global health crisis.
Exactly. And the mission of this deep dive is to really unpack that. We want to explore how this speaker looks at viral epidemiology through the lens of quantum spirituality. It's
Yeah.
basically redefining immunity as an issue of the soul, not just the physical body.
Right. It takes this looming threat and makes it entirely metaphysical.
So to really wrap our heads around this, let's set the scene. The date of the source material is March 2026. So it has been 5 years since the 2020 COVID pandemic.
Wow, 5 years.
Yeah. But global anxiety is spiking again because there is a new threat making headlines, which is the Nipah virus originating in India.
And this isn't just like a minor bug.
No, not at all. Our source notes it's being classified as a new class 1 infectious disease. So that means rapid transmission, huge mortality rates, and the scariest part, there are currently 0 known treatments or vaccines.
So people are understandably panicking.
Totally. Countries across Southeast Asia,
Mm-hmm.
the places like Singapore, they're already proactively stepping up border controls and airport screenings.
Because the default human instinct is to build a physical wall to stop a physical pathogen.
Right. You stockpile masks, you fast-track vaccines. But here's where we transition into the actual lecture. Because our source argues that while the medical world is hunting for a physical vaccine, they are completely missing the only defense that actually works.
Spiritual immunity.
Yes, spiritual immunity. So how does the speaker actually define that?
Well, it starts with a really hard line between matter and quantum energy. The speaker points out that a virus, no matter how deadly it is ultimately just physical matter.
Okay, physical matter.
Right. But the human soul operates on non-physical quantum energy.
Oh, I like that distinction.
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding this, it's kind of like an analogy I was thinking about earlier. Imagine the human body is this physical castle, right? Made of stone.
Sure.
But the soul's quantum energy is like an invisible, impenetrable force field surrounding the castle. So if your force field, your quantum energy is fully charged, the arrows, which are the physical virus, they might brush past, but they can't deeply penetrate the castle.
That is exactly the logic the source uses. It's all about frequency. If you are full of good energy and you are practicing right behavior, your frequency is so high that the dense physical matter of the virus just cannot easily harm you.
So immunity is less about white blood cells and more about strengthening your soul's energy to overpower the material virus.
Exactly. You overpower the material with the quantum.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is how the lecture applies this backwards to the COVID-19 lockdowns.
Oh, right, the lockdowns. The source has a really fascinating take on the purpose of global viruses, right?
Yeah. The speaker argues that nature designs global viruses specifically to literally slow down human movement.
Wait, like intentionally to stop us from moving?
Yes, to stop people from wandering around doing, quote, useless things.
Useless things, wow.
Yeah. If you are out doing trivial stuff, radiating low energy, the virus comes through as a regulatory mechanism to just paralyze those physical systems.
So it forces everyone inside to stop the chaotic energy. That is such a wild reframing of a public health measure.
It really is.
But, okay, asking a logical question here. This is a big thematic shift. If quantum energy protects us and acts as this shield, why do people still fall ill and die? Like, we know good people get sick.
And this is where the lecture introduces a very controversial concept called population organization.
Population organization. That sounds intense.
It is. The source asserts that viruses are actually nature's way of clearing out those who, structurally speaking, do not need to live anymore, or
Wow.
people who have lost the will to live.
I mean, we really have to pause here and push back on this. Because to modern medical sensibilities, that sounds incredibly fatalistic or honestly just harsh.
It does sound harsh, absolutely.
And I want to be super clear to you listening, we aren't endorsing this view at all. But, to understand the source material, we really have to look at its internal logic. So the text uses a specific example, right?
Yeah, the speaker brings up this very provocative example of elderly individuals in nursing homes.
Right?
The lecture describes people who just sit around all day saying, when will I die?
Wow.
Yeah. And the argument is that if a person has absolutely no desire or purpose to live, The virus arrives to basically help them pass on.
So the speaker views it as a mercy rather than a tragedy.
Exactly. It's nature fulfilling a request, essentially.
Okay, but then, under this framework, who actually survives? If that's the sorting mechanism, how do you stay off the list?
Survival is granted to those who have a purpose, period.
A purpose.
Yeah. It ties into karma. If you still need to extinguish karma and you are forging a path for the future, you are generating high-frequency energy.
So as long as you were doing something meaningful, your quantum shield is active and you survive.
That's the idea. Nature won't let the virus take you if your work isn't done.
But that brings us to another inevitable reality, which is death. Because even with purpose, what happens when nature does decide it's someone's time to go?
Right, because bodies don't last forever.
Yeah.
And that introduces this concept of ho-yang.
Oh, yay.
Yes, it means a proper spiritual conclusion, or basically the transferring of merit.
So there is a right way to die in this philosophy.
Exactly. The text argues that if the virus does bypass your shield and takes you, you shouldn't be sad or angry about it.
Right, you shouldn't resist it.
You should embrace it with profound gratitude.
And the speaker provides an exact script for this, right? Like for the actual moment of death.
Yes, a very specific mental posture.
I have the quote right here. It says, "Thank you, I didn't know. I will live diligently in the next life."
That's it. By passing away with that exact realization, the soul is able to cleanly detach. It transitions smoothly to the next dimensional realm without any heavy, dense energy dragging it down.
But what happens if you don't do that? Because the text contrasts this with the danger of attachment.
This is a huge warning in the lecture. Dying with earthly attachments is the worst thing you can do. The source specifically warns against final thoughts like, I needed to be rich before I died.
Or like, I need to see my daughter get rich.
Right, exactly. Those obsessive desires weigh down your quantum energy.
Which leads to a really fascinating observation from the text about the origins of ghosts.
Oh, yes. The spiritual mechanics of haunting.
Because, so, dying with these obsessive thoughts traps the soul in overlapping energies, right? And that turns them into an attachment ghost, or a jibchakwe that just clings to its descendants.
You nailed it. The ghost is literally anchored to the living relative because of its own unfulfilled greed or regret.
That's wild. It's a spiritual traffic jam.
That's a great way to put it. And the lecture points out that this spiritual ignorance is why humans handle haunting so badly.
Because they try to exorcise ghosts with loud rituals.
Exactly. People beat drums and chant loudly to scare the spirit away, but hitting a physical drum does nothing to a trapped quantum frequency.
It's just physical noise.
Right. What the spirit actually needs is explanation and understanding. You have to reason with it so it realizes its attachment is meaningless, and then it can finally move on.
So it's basically quantum therapy for ghosts.
That is exactly what it is.
I love that. Well, let's bring the conversation back to the present day, to the Nipah virus threat we talked about at the start.
Sure.
Why are we facing a virus with no vaccine right now? And why does the speaker confidently predict that 2 more waves of these unvaccinatable viruses are coming in the future?
It all comes down to nature's intention, or God's intention, depending on how you look at it.
Okay, so it's deliberate.
Very much so. The source explains that nature doesn't send a virus that humans can easily block with a vaccine.
Because if we can just take a shot, we don't learn anything.
Right. We just go back to the exact same low-frequency behaviors. So unvaccinatable viruses are deliberately sent as a scolding.
A scolding to humanity.
Yeah, when humanity cannot be controlled or corrected otherwise, nature demands a metaphysical upgrade by sending a threat that physical medicine simply cannot fix.
Which means your intentions matter more than anything else.
Absolutely.
The source gives some super practical advice for navigating these danger zones, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you travel to a heavily infected area with true purpose, like essential business, you won't catch it.
Your pure intention sustains your shield.
But if you go just to, quote, play around and do weird things.
Doing weird things is a guaranteed way to drop your frequency.
Yeah, your shield drops and the virus infects you.
But even then, the illness is just a real-time feedback loop. It will make you suffer until you undergo genuine repentance.
Which is another script the speaker provides. You have to say, "I'm sorry, please release me. I will live diligently."
Right. You execute that cognitive shift, your frequency rises, and your biological systems flush the virus out.
It is just wild to think about it that way. Which really brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this whole lecture.
The grand finale.
Yeah, because the speaker insists that humans are not just mere flesh and bone. We are gods.
Souls.
Right. We are Hongik Ingen.
Hongik Ingang. It's this profound concept, meaning leaders who are meant to broadly benefit humanity, descendants of heaven.
And the speaker's whole point is that if you are a descendant of heaven, you shouldn't be cowering before a mere physical virus.
It is an indignity to your divine nature. Once you remember your true identity, the fear dissolves and your quantum shield becomes impenetrable.
It's a breathtaking reframing of everything. So just to recap the journey of this deep dive, we started with the terrifying emergence of the Nipah virus and this concept of the quantum shield.
Then we waded into the really controversial waters of population organization.
Right. And we looked at the spiritual mechanics of ghosts and Ho-Yang before ending with this radical call to recognize human divinity.
It really challenges you to look at your own life. And I would ask everyone listening to reflect on your own spiritual immunity.
Not necessarily in the literal sense of fighting a physical virus, right?
I know. But asking yourself, are you living with the kind of active purpose the source describes? Or are you just wandering around doing useless things?
It's a great question. And it leaves you with a final thought to ponder. If we viewed every external crisis we face, whether that is a global pandemic or even just a personal setback in your daily life, not as a random physical attack, but as a direct, intentional audit of our life's purpose and our attachments.
How would that change everything?
Exactly. How would that instantly change the decisions you make tomorrow morning? It is definitely something to chew on. So thank you for joining us today on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep exploring the unseen, and we will catch you next time.